You know that moment when she starts pulling away and every part of you wants to text her, call her, or fix it. But here's the truth. The moment you stop doing that is the moment she starts coming back. Because attraction doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in your calmness, your control, and your quiet confidence. Let me explain what happens when you finally act like this. When a woman starts pulling away, most men panic. They overthink every little detail, why she hasn't replied, why her tone feels colder, why she suddenly seems distracted. That panic triggers a desperate reaction, texting more, explaining yourself, trying harder to fix what feels broken. But here's what you need to understand. Chasing her emotionally when she's pulling back doesn't bring her closer. It actually pushes her further away. Why? Because it communicates a deep sense of neediness, and nothing kills attraction faster than neediness. Emotional detachment, on the other hand, signals control, strength, and value. It tells her that you don't rely on her validation to feel secure. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop trying to control outcomes. You stop basing your emotional stability on how she responds or what she chooses to do. Most men think love means constantly proving yourself, constantly reassuring, constantly showing up, even when she's pulling away. But real respect comes from the opposite. It comes when you can say, I care about you, but I'm not going to chase you. That mindset shifts everything, because the moment she realizes she can't control your emotions, she starts to respect you again. Think about it. People respect what they can't easily influence. When you're emotionally reactive, she feels power. When you're calm, composed, and unbothered, that power shifts back to you. It's not about playing games, it's about emotional discipline. When you detach emotionally, you're saying, I am centered. I don't need you to act a certain way for me to feel okay. That kind of energy is rare, and women feel it. It's magnetic, because it creates safety and mystery at the same time. She feels that you're strong enough to handle distance without losing yourself. Now, let's be real. Detachment doesn't come naturally, especially when you care. You'll feel that urge to reach out, to fix things, to explain yourself. You'll want to break the silence just to feel close again. But the truth is, emotional detachment is a skill. It's about resisting those urges and letting the space between you do the work for you. When you give her space without reacting, something powerful happens. She starts to feel the contrast. She starts to miss the attention she used to take for granted. That silence becomes louder than any message you could send. The key is to redirect that energy back into yourself. Instead of chasing her, you invest that same energy into your purpose, your fitness, your growth, your peace. You become busy improving your life instead of obsessing over her absence. That shift not only distracts your mind, it also raises your value in her eyes. Because while she's trying to figure out why you've gone calm, you're actually leveling up. That's when attraction starts to rebuild naturally. Most men lose themselves in relationships because they forget who they were before her. They start living for her attention instead of their own direction. Emotional detachment brings you back to yourself. It reminds you that your worth doesn't depend on her staying. It depends on how you carry yourself when she's uncertain. When she sees that you're okay without her, she starts questioning why she ever pulled away in the first place. That's when the dynamic shifts. Emotional detachment is quiet confidence. It's the ability to remain grounded even when she tests you, ignores you, or walks away temporarily. It's knowing that your peace is not up for negotiation. That kind of energy forces her to reevaluate her behavior because you're not reacting like everyone else. You're not begging, explaining, or chasing. You're simply standing still, calm, and unshaken. That's when she starts to feel the weight of your absence and the value of your presence. Attraction thrives on polarity, the natural tension between masculine and feminine energy. When that polarity fades, the spark fades too. What most men don't realize is that a woman doesn't lose interest because she's bored. She loses interest when she stops feeling your masculine presence. Masculine energy isn't about dominance or control. It's about stability, purpose, and emotional groundedness. It's the energy that makes her feel safe in your presence and drawn to your strength. When you act from a place of calm confidence, it reignites that polarity, and she instinctively starts leaning back in. Masculine energy is quiet but powerful. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't beg for attention or validation. It stands firm even when things get uncertain. A woman can sense when a man is operating from insecurity, when he's trying to impress, over-explain, or constantly seek reassurance. That energy feels heavy and anxious. But when a man is rooted in his masculine energy, he's unshaken. He's assertive without being aggressive, patient without being passive. His calmness creates contrast, and that contrast is what draws her closer. You see, women are naturally more connected to emotion and flow. They feel, they express, they shift. That's feminine energy. Masculine energy is the opposite. It's structure, direction, and focus. When you embody that energy, you give her something to lean into. She can relax because you're not matching her chaos. You're grounding it. You're not trying to control her emotions. You're simply not reacting to them. That's the balance she craves. Because when you stay calm while she's emotional, you become the emotional anchor in the dynamic. That's when attraction grows deeper, even without words. Every time you overreact, chase, or lose composure, you dissolve that polarity. She can't feel your strength if you're emotionally unstable. Masculine energy isn't loud, it's presence. It's when your tone stays calm, your posture stays strong, and your focus stays forward even when she tests you. And yes, she will test you. Not because she wants to break you, but because she wants to feel that you're unbreakable. It's her way of confirming that your confidence isn't fragile. When she sees that you don't crumble under pressure, she relaxes into her feminine nature again. Masculine energy also means you lead without forcing. You make decisions, you take initiative, and you don't wait for permission to act. Leadership doesn't mean control, it means direction. A man who knows where he's going naturally attracts a woman who wants to be part of that vision. That's why women are drawn to purpose-driven men. When you're focused on your goals, your dreams, and your discipline, it gives your energy depth. She doesn't have to wonder what you stand for. She can feel it. That's what makes her respect you. Most men lose polarity by becoming too emotionally available too soon. They start matching her energy, mirroring her mood, or trying to fix her feelings. But that only makes you feel more like her friend than her man. Feminine energy doesn't want a mirror, it wants a mountain. Someone who doesn't change based on her emotional weather. Masculine energy holds space. It listens, observes, and acts with clarity. When she senses that your emotions aren't easily swayed, she feels something rare, security. And security, paired with mystery, is what keeps her chasing that connection. When you operate from masculine energy, your presence speaks louder than your words. She feels it when you walk into a room, when you look at her with certainty, and when you stay composed under pressure. It's not about trying to be alpha, it's about self-control. It's about mastering your emotions so they don't master you. That's what creates the dynamic tension that keeps attraction alive. Because when you stand strong in your masculine frame, she naturally softens in her feminine, and that balance is what brings her back every single time. Human psychology is wired in a way that we value what feels rare, uncertain, or hard to attain. When something is always available, we stop appreciating it. This principle applies to almost every area of life, especially in relationships. When a man makes himself too accessible, constantly texting, calling, or showing up, he unknowingly removes all sense of mystery and excitement. There's no emotional space left for curiosity or desire to build. But when you pull your energy back, not as a manipulation tactic, but as a reflection of self-respect, you instantly change the emotional dynamic. She begins to feel your absence, and that absence becomes the very thing that reignites her desire. Scarcity doesn't mean ignoring her or cutting her off completely. It means you're no longer feeding the connection with endless effort while getting little in return. It's about balance, knowing when to give and when to step back. When you create that emotional distance, you allow her to feel the contrast between your presence and your absence. Most men are afraid of this silence. They think that if they don't chase, she'll forget them. But the truth is, people don't forget what made them feel something real. What they forget is what they took for granted. When you stop giving constant reassurance, she starts remembering your value. You see, scarcity creates emotional tension. It gives her space to reflect, to question, and to feel the loss of your attention. And that's powerful because attraction grows in absence, not in constant proximity. When you're always available, you remove the emotional gap that creates longing. But when you take a step back and focus on yourself, she starts to feel that energetic shift. Suddenly, your silence starts speaking louder than your words ever did. She begins to think about you, not because you reminded her, but because she feels your absence. The key is emotional detachment with intention. You're not pulling away to punish her or make her chase you out of fear. You're simply choosing to protect your peace and your energy. That choice radiates confidence, and confidence always creates desire. The more a woman senses that you're capable of walking away, the more she starts to question why she let you go. That uncertainty triggers attraction because the feminine energy is drawn to emotional intensity and depth. Scarcity gives her that emotional edge. It forces her to feel something again. Most men misunderstand scarcity and try to fake it. They use silence as a weapon, act cold, or play games. That doesn't create desire, it creates confusion and resentment. True scarcity comes from inner strength. It comes from knowing that you don't need her validation to feel complete. When that energy is genuine, she feels the difference. You're not pretending to be busy. You actually are busy. You're not waiting by your phone. You're focused on your goals, your health, your peace. And that's when she starts to notice, because your energy has shifted from chasing to choosing. Scarcity also reminds her of your individuality. In relationships, it's easy for people to blur into routine, to stop seeing each other as unique, valuable individuals. When you create space, it resets that perception. She begins to remember who you were before things got too comfortable. The man who had drive, focus, and self-respect, that memory alone is enough to reignite attraction because it reawakens her curiosity about you. And curiosity is the foundation of desire. So when you pull your energy back, you're not creating distance. You're creating magnetism. You're giving her the emotional space to miss you, to wonder, to reflect. That gap makes her want to close it. Because the truth is, people chase what they feel they might lose. And when she senses that your presence isn't guaranteed, she begins to value it again, not out of fear, but out of recognition. Recognition that your attention was never ordinary and your energy was never something to take lightly. One of the biggest shifts a man can make in his life and in his relationships is choosing purpose over validation. Too many men build their emotional foundation on how a woman feels about them. When she's affectionate, they feel confident. When she's distant, they feel lost. That emotional dependency creates a cycle of insecurity where every action becomes about earning approval instead of living with direction. Purpose breaks that cycle. When you live for something bigger than her opinion, your energy changes completely. You stop chasing reassurance and start radiating strength because your focus is no longer on being liked, it's on being aligned. A man without purpose becomes easily swayed. He reacts to moods, texts, and temporary emotions because he has no deeper anchor holding him steady. But when you're connected to your mission, your career, your goals, your growth, you stop letting temporary feelings dictate permanent decisions. That's what masculine energy truly is, direction. It's not about being emotionless. It's about having emotional discipline. When your sense of worth comes from what you're building, not from who's validating you, you naturally become more attractive. A woman can feel when a man is driven by purpose rather than approval. It gives her a sense of safety, admiration, and respect because it shows you know who you are. Validation seekers constantly adjust themselves to please others. They hide parts of their personality, soften their opinions, or overextend just to be accepted. But the more you do that, the more you lose authenticity. And when you lose authenticity, you lose respect, both from her and from yourself. Purpose-centered men don't chase acceptance, they attract it. They don't try to fit into someone's expectations, they lead with conviction. That kind of presence can't be faked because it's rooted in self-worth. You're not trying to prove your value, you're already living it. The moment you shift your attention from how do I make her like me to how do I become the man I'm proud of, everything changes. You begin to walk differently, talk differently, and respond differently. You stop overanalyzing her behavior because you're too focused on your mission to be consumed by it. That self-assured focus draws her in. Women are naturally drawn to men who have direction, who move with confidence, and who don't lose themselves in relationships. It signals emotional stability and maturity, two traits that deepen attraction far more than compliments or constant attention ever could. When your life is built around purpose, validation becomes optional. You enjoy love, but you don't depend on it. You give affection, but you don't beg for it. You can walk away if something doesn't align, not because you don't care, but because you value peace more than approval. That's real power, the kind that doesn't need to shout, the kind that simply is. Purpose gives you that silent confidence. It reminds you that your mission existed before she arrived, and it will continue regardless of where she goes. That's what makes you unshakable. Living for purpose also keeps you grounded during emotional highs and lows. When she pulls away or acts distant, you don't spiral. You redirect. You put that energy into your work, your body, your goals. You channel the emotion instead of reacting to it. That emotional mastery separates men who crumble under pressure from those who grow stronger through it. The man who chooses purpose over validation isn't cold. He's focused. He can love deeply, but he'll never lose himself in that love. And that's exactly why women respect men who live this way. Because deep down, feminine energy is drawn to masculine direction. She doesn't want a man who's constantly seeking her reassurance. She wants a man who already knows his path. When you have that clarity, you stop trying to prove your worth through attention and start expressing it through action. You become the kind of man whose value is obvious, not because you're trying to be noticed, but because your life speaks for itself. The way you respond in emotional situations defines how others perceive your strength. Most men make the mistake of reacting impulsively when a woman pulls away, tests them, or acts cold. They get defensive, over-explain, or try to fix things immediately because silence feels uncomfortable. But here's the truth. Every time you react emotionally, you give away your power. Control is not about pretending to be emotionless. It's about mastering your emotions so they don't dictate your behavior. When you control your reactions, you project calmness, maturity, and confidence, and that makes a woman feel both respect and curiosity toward you. Emotional control starts with awareness. You have to recognize when your body goes into overdrive, when your chest tightens, your mind races, and you feel that urge to respond instantly. That's the moment where most men lose themselves. But when you pause, breathe, and think before acting, you change the entire dynamic. Instead of feeding chaos with chaos, you neutralize it. Your calmness becomes the strongest response you can give. Because when you stay composed while she's emotional or distant, she feels that contrast. It reminds her that you're not like the rest, because most men break under pressure while you stay solid. Control also means not explaining your worth. When you feel misunderstood or rejected, the natural instinct is to justify yourself, to make her see your side. But explaining yourself excessively is a form of emotional chasing. It tells her that you need her understanding to feel secure. The man who controls his reactions doesn't overtalk. He steps back and lets his actions reveal who he is. Silence becomes his boundary. He doesn't react to every mood or test. He simply observes. That quiet confidence is far more powerful than words, and it often speaks louder than any emotional outburst ever could. Women often test men emotionally, not out of malice, but to feel their strength. They want to know if you can handle tension without losing composure. It's instinctive. When you stay calm during those moments, she subconsciously feels safe around you. She realizes that your emotions are steady, not easily shaken. That's when her trust and respect deepen. But when you become reactive, defensive, or overly emotional, it signals instability. It shows that you're led by feelings instead of direction. Control, therefore, isn't about suppressing your emotions, it's about channeling them with discipline. True control also comes from detachment. You must learn to separate your identity from external validation. Whether she compliments you or criticizes you, your emotional state remains stable. You neither inflate with praise nor crumble under rejection. That neutrality doesn't make you cold. It makes you powerful. It shows that you're emotionally independent. Because the man who can't control his reactions becomes predictable, and predictability kills attraction. When you stay calm and composed, you become mysterious again. She starts wondering what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and that curiosity pulls her closer. When conflict arises, control your tone, your pace, and your presence. Speak less, but with intention. Don't rush to fill silence. Let it work in your favor. Silence creates pressure, and pressure reveals truth. Most people fear silence because it forces emotional accountability. But when you can sit in silence without anxiety, it shows immense self-control. You're no longer driven by fear of loss. You're driven by clarity of self. That's what separates emotionally grounded men from emotionally impulsive ones. A man who controls his reactions doesn't fight for peace. He is the peace. His calmness sets the tone for every interaction. When a woman sees that nothing she says or does can throw you off balance, she instinctively softens. Because deep down, feminine energy craves stability. Your composure becomes the signal that she can relax, trust, and reconnect. The less you react, the more she reflects. And in that quiet reflection, she begins to feel the weight of your presence and the power of your restraint. Silence is one of the most powerful tools a man can use when it comes to attraction and respect. In a world where everyone rushes to explain, defend, and prove themselves, silence communicates confidence. It says, I don't need to convince you, I know who I am. When a woman starts to pull away or test boundaries, most men respond with words. They overtext, over-apologize, or over-explain. But the man who stays silent when he needs to stands out. His silence creates space for curiosity, reflection, and even regret. It forces her to feel his absence and to question her own behavior. Your silence is not a form of punishment, it's a form of power. When you stop reacting, you take control of the dynamic. Silence removes noise, emotion, and confusion from the situation. It's a boundary without aggression. It says, I'm not here to argue or beg, I'm here to protect my peace. That energy shifts everything because people notice what's missing only when it's no longer available. The woman who used to take your attention for granted suddenly feels uneasy without it. The absence of your words becomes louder than any message you could ever send. Most men misunderstand silence and either use it as a manipulation tactic or avoid it out of fear. But real silence doesn't come from ego, it comes from emotional control. You're not ignoring her to prove something, you're choosing quiet because you refuse to waste energy where it's not respected. That kind of silence is mature, deliberate, and powerful. It communicates that your emotions are steady, that you don't need validation, and that you understand your value. When she realizes that your attention is earned, not given freely, she starts to treat it differently. Silence also reveals truth. When you stop talking, you see who reaches out, you see who checks in, who misses you, and who doesn't. Words can hide intentions, but silence exposes them. If someone truly values you, they'll feel your absence. If they don't, your silence saves you from chasing what was never genuine. That's why staying quiet can often bring more clarity than confrontation. It's not about winning a battle. It's about observing what happens when you remove your energy from the equation. There's also a calm mystery that silence creates. When you're not constantly available, you become unpredictable. She starts to wonder what you're thinking, what you're doing, and why you're so composed. That curiosity triggers attraction because silence creates emotional space, and in that space, desire grows. A woman's mind naturally fills that space with imagination, and imagination always intensifies emotion. The man who doesn't rush to speak or prove himself keeps that mystery alive. But silence only works when it's backed by presence. You can't disappear completely and expect respect if your life lacks direction. The difference between passive silence and powerful silence is purpose. When you're silent but actively improving yourself, working out, focusing on your goals, upgrading your mindset, that silence becomes magnetic. It's not emptiness, it's energy being redirected inward. She doesn't just feel your absence, she feels your growth. And that's when your silence starts speaking louder than any conversation. Your silence also teaches respect. When you don't respond to unnecessary drama or emotional games, you set a standard. You show that your peace is non-negotiable. People can only affect you emotionally if you allow them to. By staying silent, you're showing emotional maturity, the ability to choose stillness over reaction. It tells her that you're not moved by pressure or manipulation, and that's what earns long-term respect. When a man knows when to speak and when to stay silent, he controls the emotional rhythm of the relationship. His silence gives meaning to his words. It shows that his communication is intentional, not impulsive, and that balance is what makes his presence powerful. Because when you finally do speak after silence, every word carries weight. It's not the noise that draws her back. It's the quiet strength behind it.